The story opens with a quiet atmosphere in a small cabin in the American West, where a man named Emmett is sleeping alone. Suddenly, the door is forced open and a gunman immediately shoots him at close range. Fortunately, Emmett is a trained person, so with quick reflexes, he wakes up and immediately grabs a gun and shoots back, killing his attacker. Before he can calm down, he sees someone else walking outside the cabin, and without hesitation, he also shoots him. Suddenly, a shotgun blast came from the roof. Unfortunately, Emmett's pistol was out of ammo, but fortunately, he wasn't out of ideas. He immediately threw his empty pistol toward the stove to trick his enemy on the roof. When his enemy was off guard, he quickly grabbed his Winchester rifle, and with a single shot, Emmett managed to knock the shooter off the roof and into the cabin. After feeling safe, Emmett then left the cabin to examine the bodies of his attackers. He also saw their horses running, and one of them had a mark he recognized. Emmett then left the place, and he took one of their horses to wander. In the middle of the road, Emmett accidentally saw a man lying limp on the ground wearing only shabby clothes. Emmett, who believed that good things will bring good things, immediately helped him, gave him water, and invited him to travel together. In the evening, they rested while making a bonfire, and the man introduced himself as Patton. He told that he had joined one of the groups from the city, but after traveling together, it turned out that they were robbed. All his belongings, including his horse, were stolen by them. The next morning, they arrived at a military outpost, and after dismounting, Emmett gave Patton money to buy new clothes. When Patton accidentally saw his stolen horse and the thief, he sneaked into the general store and bought a gun with the money Emmett had given him. He asked the shopkeeper for credit for the best gun, but was refused. And finally, shopkeeper only gave him an old pistol with a loose cylinder. Patton then took the gun to the town square, and there the thief saw him and attacked him with several shots, while Patton is seen calmly aiming at him and shooting the thief to fall from the horse. As Patton hugged his stolen horse, a sergeant then questioned, and Patton told him to check the name under the saddle. When asked who he was, an observer named Cobb spelled out Patton's name. The sergeant then checked the saddle to confirm the ownership of the horse, and afterward asked the crowd to disperse and advised Patton to dress properly. Cobb then gave Patton money to buy decent clothes and a cowboy hat. Patton thanked him, and Cobb invited him to join his new venture in the West, but Patton declined and chose to just observe. Cobb then met Tyree, a brutal man who had just been freed from chains. As they were about to part ways, Tyree asked about a dog, adding a dark tone to their conversation.
Where's the dog?
You owe me $13.
The next day, Emmett planned to go to a place called Turley to meet his brother Jake before heading to Silverado, where their sister and his family were waiting. Emmett and his brother Jake looked forward to spending time with their family before finally continuing their journey to California. Patton, who was interested in the salon in Silverado, decided to go with him. Upon arriving at their destination, an old man named Hobart mistook them for Baxter and Holly and scolded them. Hobart led a group of farmers to settle in Silverado. Patton and Emmett felt uneasy when Baxter and Holly arrived, and they began to suspect that Hobart and the two were conducting illegal transactions. While eating at the hotel restaurant, they see a large black man named Mal come in and ask for a room and a whiskey. The hotel clerk hesitates, but eventually gives him the whiskey. However, the hotel manager immediately tells Mal and refuses to serve him because he is black. Three men then try to kick Malcolm out, but he quickly overpowers them, causing a commotion that attracts everyone's attention. Sheriff Langston then arrived and stopped the fight. Although Emmett and Patton were ready to defend Mal, Langston, who knew about the hotel manager's injustice, told Mal to leave the hotel without paying for the damage. Mal then gathered his belongings and took a bottle of whiskey that was still intact when he left. Langston then reveals that he knows Jake as a man in prison for shooting someone. Emmett eventually learns that Jake fired in self-defense due to a romantic misunderstanding. However, Langston, now adhering to the strict laws of the Old West, has scheduled Jack's hanging for the following morning at 10 a.m. Although Emmett initially told Jake that he couldn't help him, outside the sheriff's office he revealed his plan to free Jake to Patton. Patton refused to take part in the rescue, and afterwards they headed to the saloon for a drink. Inside the saloon, Patton spotted a thief who had taken his hat and some of his valuables. The thief tried to pull out his gun, but Patton was quicker and shot him dead on the spot. After the fight, Langstone arrested Patton and placed him in the cell where Jack was being held. The next day, a young man distracted Langstone by telling him the gallows weights were on fire. Meanwhile, in the cell, Jake unlocked the cell's handcuffs using his belt buckle. When the deputy checked the cell, he found only Patton, who then handcuffed the deputy to the cell bars.
Give me a hand.
The deputy finally realized what was happening, but Patton quickly subdued him, and after being safe, Jake revealed himself. The two then grabbed some supplies and waited outside the sheriff's office for Emmett to arrive with his horses. However, while escaping, Emmett, Jake, and Patton sparked a shootout with several townspeople in Langston, who had just returned. Luckily, Mal helped them escape by using his rifle to prevent Langston from shooting Jake. Seeing the danger, Langston then stopped the chase. After feeling safe, Mal then says his intention to join Jake, Emmett, and Patton on their way to Silverado. The four of them immediately head to Silverado, and in the middle of their journey, they accidentally meet Hope, who were left on the edge after being lied to by Baxter and Holly, who had stolen their money. The four of them then split the task and left Jake to help the farmers who were currently weak. Meanwhile, Patton, Emmett, and some of the still strong farmers pursue the criminals. Emmett and his friends finally find a hideout in a canyon where Baxter, Holly, and their gang are hiding. Emmett, who pretends to be in a hurry, then enters the canyon with Patton lying on his horse pretending to be dead. He then tells Dawson, the gang leader, that they are being chased by a group of sheriffs after robbing a bank in Turley. Dawson, angry at being chased by the sheriffs, plans to when suddenly shots come from above. Mal and a farmer then shoot from the edge of the canyon. In the chaos, Emmett releases Dawson's horses, while Patton, who sees through Emmett's brilliant plan, then pulls out the previously stolen iron box and drags it with his horse, while Mal and a farmer block their pursuit. Emmett and his friends finally manage to escape while laughing at their success. However, the farmer, who doesn't believe them, demands the iron box to be given to him. Unfortunately, he is finally killed by a hidden shooter from... After returning fire and killing the attacker, they met Jake, who was leading the farmers to Silverado. That night around the campfire, their friendship began. Even there, Patton expressed his interest in Hannah, the widow of a farmer who had died. Meanwhile, Mal talked about his difficult time working at the Chicago guardhouse and his hope of reuniting with his family on the Silverado farm. After the farmers safely arrive, the group rides to Silverado, each with their own destination. Patton heads to a local saloon and meets Stella, the manager and former dancer known as Virginia's Midnight Star. They instantly hit it off and become friends. Their moment is interrupted when Cobb, now the sheriff, arrives and affectionately refers to the Silverado area as paradise. Meanwhile, Mal arrives at his family's farm to find it overrun by cattle, and his father Ezra hiding in a cave after being chased out by Mckendendrick's men. Ezra recounts the death of Mal's mother and how his sister faced hardship in the city. Hearing this, Mal resolutely promised to restore their lives. At their sister's house, Jake and Emmett reunite with their family. Their brother-in-law, JT, warns them of the corruption under Cobb's control. However, Jake and Emmett still plan to leave for California the next day. Mal's father then went to the river to get water and met two men from Mckendendrick who stole his rifle and shot him to death.
That's too bad.
Mal, who was sleeping in the cave, was then awakened by the sound of gunfire and found his father dead and his rifle missing. Afterward, Mal told his sister about their father's death, but Ray was indifferent and unhappy to see Mal's presence. Mal then begged Ray to leave the world of prostitution, but she refused. Elsewhere, the farmers Jake and Emmett helped were having a picnic when an attack came from Mckendrick's men, who killed livestock, burned houses, and shot the farmers.
It's Mckendrick's men!
In the chaos, Jake and Emmett fought off and killed several of the attackers, and Emmett managed to seize Henry's rifle from one of them. Back at the saloon, Stella and Patton have a casual conversation about how Stella watered down the liquor because the original taste is too strong. However, their conversation is interrupted when Jake and Cobb's henchman Tyree start a commotion after Jake kisses his woman. Patton then steps in and takes Tyree's gun, telling Jake to leave to avoid further trouble and reminding him of Jake's previous arrest in Turley. After returning the gun to Tyree, Tyree threatens Patton by pressing the gun to his chin. Stella finally calmed the situation, and afterward Tyree left. In another part of town, Emmett and his nephew Augie were stopped by Mckendendrick and his men, who were riding horses at the time. Seeing the markings on their horses, Emmett chose to surrender, realizing that they were part of the group that had attacked him while he was sleeping at the beginning of the film. The encounter was tense because Mckendendrick wanted revenge for the shooting of his father by Emmett, who had previously targeted. After the tension, Mckendendrick then backed off, leaving an implied threat. At the saloon, Cobb tells Patton about his past, where he used to be a member of a robbery gang with Tyree and other friends. And after sharing his story, Cobb gives Patton his first earnings from the saloon and tells him that one day he will manage everything. However, Patton refuses the offer because he doesn't want to take away Stella's dream. Cobb then expresses his concern about the problems Emmett, Jake, and Mal are causing in the town and asks Patton not to interfere in their affairs, but Patton reluctantly answers. Meanwhile, outside the city, Emmett practices shooting with the Henry rifle he obtained earlier and his own pistol. When he runs out of ammo, several of Mckendendrick's men, including Tyree, attack him with lassos and threaten to kill him. Mal, who is on the hill, shoots one of them and kills another, forcing them to flee. Mal then tells Emmett that he is looking for him and the rifle he is using because it belonged to his late father. Despite being badly injured, Emmett insists on looking for his brother. Mal suggests that Emmett rest and offers to look for Jake alone because they are both in danger. After that, Mal talked to Ray about their father's killers and convinced her to arrange a meeting with Jake through Slick. However, when Mal arrived at the meeting place, it was Cobb who visited him, beat him up, and arrested him.
And we're going to give you a fair trial, followed by...
When Patton visited Mal in prison, Mal's trust in Patton began to waver because of his relationship with Cobb. Meanwhile, at Jake and Emmett's older sister's house, the situation turned tense when Mckendendrick and his men took over. They then captured Jake when he returned home, burned the house to destroy important land documents, shot their brother-in-law who tried to resist, beat Jake's wife until she was unconscious, and kidnapped Augie, who saw them set the fire. News of the fire quickly spread to the saloon, and Patton and Stella immediately headed there. Stella mobilized her men to form an emergency firefighting line led by Patton. But unfortunately, the fire was too big to extinguish. Cobb, who arrived at the scene, lamented the destruction and afterwards reminded Patton of the risks of getting too involved, emphasizing that it could endanger Stella. When Stella scolded Patton for not acting quickly amid the chaos, Ray learned that Mal had been arrested and secretly took the dagger hidden in Slick's shoe. When the deputy who was once injured by Mal takes Ray to jail and tries to search her, Ray stabs him in the back with a previously stolen dagger, but unfortunately, she is shot in the act. Mal then defeated the deputy by pushing the dagger deeper and killing him. As Mal searched for the key, another deputy appeared, and without seeing him clearly, Mal threw the dagger and killed him. Stella finally realized why Patton had hesitated to act during the previous fire because Cobb had successfully used him as a means of control. She was saddened to see a world filled with oppressors. Patton respected Stella's determination, but remained afraid of what Cobb might do to her. Shortly after that, Phoebe came to tell them that Mal had escaped from his cell and left Ray unconscious in the warehouse. Mal returns to the cave and tells Emmett about what happened that night, including Augie's kidnapping. Despite being wounded, Emmett then got up and said he was ready to fight. And so it is with Mal, who now carries his rifle and his late father's rifle. Together with Patton, they headed to Mckendendrick's farm, and there they triggered a livestock panic that eventually made most of Mckendendrick's men escape. From the roof of the farmhouse, Mal provided cover as a sniper, while Emmett sneaked in to rescue Augie and fought off several enemies. Augie then said that Jake had fallen to his death in the ravine, but Emmett, who knew Jake's abilities, believed that Jake was only pretending to be dead. Inside the warehouse, Patton was still fighting the attackers and was almost shot by a man armed with Jake's pistol. Luckily, Jake suddenly swung in on a rope and stopped the man. Together, they defeated the remaining enemies and afterwards joined Emmett and Augie in the house. On the roof, Mal was almost shot by an enemy, but managed to kill him thanks to a warning from Patton. They then left the farm and returned to Silverado. On the outskirts of town, they left Augie at the cemetery and prepared to face Cobb and his men. Jake enters the saloon, attracting the attention of Tyree and a deputy. And as they begin searching, Jake, who has taken off his shoes to keep quiet, hides under the stage of Stella's. As Tyree and the deputy separate, Jake comes out and calls out to them, then shoots them both simultaneously.
Hey!
Mal rushed to the warehouse to find Ray seriously and saw Slick already there. Slick said Ray needed medical attention, but then suddenly tried to kill Mal with a concealed pistol. Luckily, Mal was quicker, disarmed Slick and stabbed him in the stomach with a dagger, killing him on the spot. Meanwhile, Emmett rides around town on horseback searching for Mckendendrick, and upon meeting him, they engage in a fierce horseback gunfight. Emmett manages to shoot Mckendrick's sniper, but loses his rifle when he is shot and his weapon jams. Emmett is also shot in the leg and drops his own pistol. He then lures Mckendrick to the other side of town, climbs onto a platform and makes his horse jump off the platform, hitting Mckendrick in the head and knocking him off his horse, killing him instantly. At the same time, Patton and Cobb prepare for a typical duel in the Wild West. They then bid each other farewell before Cobb finally pulls the trigger. Luckily, Patton moves faster and eventually shoots Cobb to death. Patton then slowly and carefully put the gun back into the holster. After returning to the saloon, Patton and Stella celebrated their victory by enjoying a glass of the finest drinks. Emmett and Jake then said goodbye to go to California as planned after making sure their families were now safe, while Mal and Ray returned to their father's farm. As they all leave, Patton, now wearing the badge of the sheriff of Silverado, appears ready to marry Hannah, the widow of a farmer. And the movie ends.